Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Marco. I am a marketer, fitness coach, singer, and astrology student, amongst other things, on a journey to discover what it means to be human. I am on a quest to build a community that helps us believe in ourselves, unleash our inner power, and reclaim our voices through self discovery. So, if you enjoy discussing topics such as fitness, relationships, astrology, and human stories in general, please feel free to subscribe, share, or reach out. Together, through the power of stories and conversation, we can grow stronger as a community. In the last episode, we talked about the foundations of having deep health, which for me is attached to happiness. There is this concept of deep health, which I learned with precision nutrition, which is having a sense of progress and balance in six main dimensions of life: our physical dimension, mental, emotional, environmental, existential, and relational. Again, so it's six dimensions of life. And if you find balance in those six dimensions of life, you acquire deep health and you feel better and you, I guess, are happier. Now, in that episode, I draw the correlation, or I found out that through my studies in astrology, that these six dimensions kind of like correlate with the, I guess, 12 dimensions of life in astrology. This is referred to like as a 12 house system. And in astrology, each one of those houses represent an area of life. Now, those 12 areas of life are actually correlated with each other. So instead of being 12, we could say they are six pairs of two, obviously, areas of life. So there's like their relational axis, or the relational um, area of astrology that you could see, for example, between the archetypical signs of Aries and Libra. And then you have the what surrounds your family, emotional, physical. We'll learn about them through this series, through the podcast. But today I want to focus on the first area, or the first axis, with which is the Aries and Libra axis, which again is the relational dimension in astrology, or the relational axis, and in the concept of deep health would be the relational dimension to life. Why am I talking about this? Because in order to be healthy, not only emotionally but physically, um, our relationships, I guess, need to be somehow healthy, or we need to find progress and acknowledgement and I would say success in our relationship, or that fulfilling sensation in our relationships. There's an a study, I think it's a Harvard study. It's kind of like it's been a little bit popular, I guess, lately, or at least I've heard about this research. And they were doing like this research on people for many years, and they found out relationships have a huge impact um in our physical health, like in many areas of our life, but also in our physical health. And sometimes we think about our physical health as something that is merely correlated with the way we eat, or we do exercise or not, right? For example, so you would say, like, if you drink alcohol, maybe it's not the best for you, or like if you smoke, maybe it's not the best for you. But sometimes we don't think, or at least I didn't think, um, that, for example, having an unhealthy relationship or a dysfunctional relationship might affect you not only emotionally, that I think we know, but physically. Like it could get you probably sick. And the cool thing is about that they found out is like, if you have better relationships, you'll feel happier and you'll be healthier as well. And that's why I want to talk about this topic today, because not only is my favorite topic to talk about, but it's because it's also um important for your health, and I love health. So yeah, I was saying I got interrupted. I was saying that relationships is one of my favorite topics to talk about. And when I talk about relationships, I'm not only talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about family relationships, friends, professional relationships, community, everything. And it is fairly easy to recognize that healthy relationships make you happier. Like you don't be like, of course, I mentioned this study, but like if we think about it, we don't need like this study to tell us like something that we can actually feel from experience. And again, this is a lot of what I'm about to say is anecdotal, is from my personal experience. Don't take this like as something as advice or anything. This is just my personal experience, but I guess people can relate, or maybe you can relate to this. And um, but here's proof: like relationships are needed for creating things. Obviously, for us to be born, at least for now, or at least till now, for businesses, for ideas, for innovation, for everything, and and right now, I've 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 been thinking that, or the other day actually, I heard this lady talk about like us being a miracle, because she was saying like, oh, your dad and your mom had to meet in order for you to be born, and then your dad's parents and your mom's parents had to meet in order for you to be born. And like obviously they're like, go you can even either not think about it, right, or like go to us like scientifically say like, or discover why we're here or whatever. But at the same time, I think it's kind of magical, um that we have the opportunity to be here, and that also gives you this purpose behind, life, and being able to experience life and to experience other people. Obviously, again, I'm talking from my privilege of having a somehow healthy life and story. And maybe not everybody can relate to that, obviously, depending on where you were born and things like that. But since this is from my personal experience, and I can say like, oh yeah, if you think about it, it's somehow magical. And probably not everyone thinks that way, but yeah. So if we come to this concept of us being a miracle, is like we are like, our existence is the result of a unique combination of circumstances, right, and events that involve relationships. So that's another like proof why relationships are so important. um so, and speaking about miracle, uh and about that axis, like that Aries and Libra axis in astrology. So before Aries, like, um Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, right? But before Aries comes Pisces. And I think Pisces has that um kind of like miracle, magical energy to it, right? And then from that, I guess, potential energy of Pisces, obviously this is astrological terminology. So if you're not very familiar with astrology, hang on, because you will learn, and maybe you can start to get familiar with these concepts. Um, and they will make sense in the future, I promise. So if we follow that order, because like we in astrology, it works in patterns and cycles, as in life. And so if we have this idea of miracle, or of, sorry, Pisces, which, holds potential, things that you might not be able to see, or an order that you don't really know, but technically exists, right? From that memory, or from that energy of Pisces, from that potential, then comes Aries. So that Aries energy, like that transition, it's kind of like the miracle from that combination, as I said before, combination of circumstances and events that maybe you cannot see them until the miracle or the manifestation happens, which would be the Aries energy. Um, you don't see it, right? You don't see it before. So it's something that is building that you might not see. That would be, again, this is my perspective, that would be like the Pisces energy. So I'm explaining this so that you can understand, or like, yeah, so that you can understand the energy also of Aries, because that's like the energy we come from. So when we get to Aries, which is the first house, archetypically the first house, and it has to do with your with you being born, like that manifestation or the things you can actually see, right? So again, everything was a combination. I'm going to repeat it again because like I think this is important. So everything was a combination of events, of circumstances that were creating something, maybe unintentionally or intentionally, um and then boom, the manifestation comes. So it's like everything, like until it comes to the full circle. So everything was coming up together until that Aries energy manifests. So that's like technically you, or every person, being born, that moment you are born and that you are created. So from the astrological perspective is like when you are born, like your first breath into this world, when you are here and you show up. So that Aries energy, or the ascendant energy, which is like that little line that draws your first house, is that energy of showing up. It's the Aries energy, that fire energy. And what gives form, it's a masculine energy, what gives form, a pattern, and a reality, an order, something that you can actually see. And then the rest of the signs, and then experience, and what you can feel, and then realizing that you're here. But that's from astrology. So again, that that Aries energy represents the energy of I am, like, or you are, like you are here, and like you are experiencing life, and then you're like material. Now, the opposite of that, what would be at the opposite end, remember, in the 12 house astrology system, is there are 12 houses. Obviously, starting from house one, it's a circle. Imagine a pizza, and then you divide that pizza in 12 slices. So the first slice would be the Aries slice, or the first house, and then the opposite, which would be the seventh, like right in front of it, is the Libra house, archetypically, or the seventh house, which is the house of relationships. So in order to have a relationship, there needs to be a self, right? And that would be the Aries energy, your individual energy. And then the opposite of that is Libra, which is an air sign. Libra is ruled by Venus. Sorry, I didn't mention before, but Aries is ruled by Mars. And so that energy, that the opposite energy, is more about the relationship. It's more about air energy, about a mental energy. And again, when we try to look at relationships or agreements with another person, someone you're very close with, or someone you have an agreement with, we look at that dimension of life. We look at the relationships. Now, I'm going to take a little pause to go back to what we were learning about relationships being important, or so important for life. Why? Because they influence everything. Like, they influence our decisions. They influence how we get to know ourselves. And we can only experience, I guess, ourselves through the interaction we have with others, in this case with other people. And I've been very lucky of having great relationships, especially friendships. I think my friends are the best. Unfortunately, we're like all over the my friends are all over the world for personal circumstances. And maybe I don't have my closest friends physically close, but you know, we have strong relationships even though we're not together physically. But those friends I met obviously in person, like the majority of them, especially my friends from school or from college. And what I've learned from those relationships is, again, in my particular case, my relationships with friends have added a lot of value to my life. For example, when I was about 19, I started doing CrossFit, and I started doing CrossFit because of one of my best friends. And we went to college together, and then she was like, "Hey, I found this new thing." It was like 2009, and my friend was like, "Hey, I found this new cool like training method or something." And we went. I remember I went there out of the blue. I've always been very active. Like when I was younger, like I was really good with my body, but then I stopped doing exercise for some reason. I never exercised again since I was like little. And that could be a story for another time, by the way. But then I was like 19, and then my friend was like, "Hey, let's go to this CrossFit thing." And I went there without like having done any exercise for the longest time, like for years. And obviously, on the first time, I almost puked. This is a little disgusting, but I was literally about to puke. And but I kept on going. I was gonna say, I found my love for fitness again because of my friend. And, like obviously we were close friends already, but then we started developing these things in common and like a common story, um, and shared values and experiences because we did something together as a relationship, and we are friends. Like we were not necessarily um, together romantically. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like relationships in general can bring a lot of value to your life. And as you get to know that person, and as you start to experience things with that person, you start creating memories that are super cool, for example, or rituals. And at some point, we kept on going to CrossFit like for forever, for years and years. And then I never stopped exercising, and my friend never stopped exercising either. And the cool thing about CrossFit is that like you have that sense of community, which I think is very important. And then you have like that sense of competition as well, and all these things. And you feel like you're able to do things. And because that it's a very physical, this is actually interesting because it's a very physical energy, and it's a very martial energy, like from like a very Aries energy, like very active, very fire, very into movement, and very physical. And I think I was lacking a bit of that energy. And well, my friend introduced me to CrossFit, and we started having our rituals. Like we would go together, and then after that, and my brother, we would go and drink juice, like fruit juice after CrossFit. I don't know if it was the healthiest thing because I think it was packed with sugar or something. But it was like fine. It was our ritual until now. Like we remember those days as if they happened yesterday. And again, relationships can bring magical things to you and really cool things to you. And obviously, if you don't have the best relationships ever, I think it would be cool to have like find a community, find people, like-minded people, or maybe find help if you need it in order to find relationships that are fulfilling. And so if you want to like, again, this is an example of why not only the chemical reactions you have by, I don't know, like from a hug, or um feeling that you belong, or feeling loved by someone, that obviously can have like that chemical reaction in your body physically, and then you get all these chemicals that make you happier for sure. But also in like those relationships impact your behavior. For example, having an accountability partner who would like take me to the gym and then you know start exercising, which is something I was lacking at that time, did a lot of good to me. um, and I want to tell a little side story here. I have this other friend that we weren't, she's like my best friend, right? And we went to middle school together, and after a long time we connected again, and she was living in the same city as I was living, and I always make this joke because I said I lost my dignity trying to connect with her because I would like keep on reaching out and inviting her to things, and she would like never come. And then now she's like begging me to stay in a relationship with her. I'm just kidding. Yeah, like we're really good friends, but we connected again through things in common. At that time, it was like eating healthy food and doing exercising. And we would go to the beach. We did yoga together, acro yoga, and then we go to the beach every Tuesday, and we would swim, and it was very cool. So in my case, my friendships have been great. So it's cool to find friends and people you have things in common with. In order to do that, you can like maybe find a sport. I think for me, and I think that's a really cool way to meet people, is always like joining a community, and usually exercise is a cool thing. And especially because we're talking about Aries today and Libra and relationships. Yeah, it's cool to find that physical connection and that movement, because I sometimes we lack moving a little bit, and that's vital for health. Now, I've talked a lot about that Aries energy, but now I want to talk about the Libra energy. Libra is a little more mental energy. So Aries, if you think about Aries as action, as impulses, as something that, as movement, as behavior, something physical that you actually do, then you would think about the opposite as some uh, reflection of thinking. Um, Again, it's a more mental energy. And the idea would be to have a balance in between those energies. Yes, have that first impulse, that first reaction, that with a little bit of reflection, then you can do informed or more conscious decisions. Especially talking about relationships, and in romantic relationships, you can say, okay, so this is that first impulse. Like there's the desire that which be ruled by Venus, and then there's the action for in order to fulfill that desire, which be the Aries, right? So it's like the self, and then what you look in front of you and what you want to go for. And we can get into a lot of things. But I would be here for like 2 hours. Oh my God. I think I've been talking for like 20 more, maybe like 30 minutes. Uh, but again, so if we talk about relationships happen in space. So it's like you need and time. So you need to create that space and those moments in order to connect with someone else. And if you talk about, for example, the romantic relationships, is in order to get to know someone, you need to have or make the space. Well, obviously you need to decide, like you need to have the desire of getting to know someone, right? And then after that desire is there, you need to have the action. And that action in where you try to intentionally connect with that other person. And this, well, I was saying romantically because I love talking about romantic relationships, but again, um, it works for everything. So it's like you have the desire, you have the action, like in order to fulfill that desire, and then through that interaction of going back and forth and having balance in between action and reaction, or a response from the other end and an action from your end, is where you start to get to create this dance or create this dynamic where you not only get to know yourself better, but you actually have the opportunity and the space to get to know the other person. So sometimes when you think, if you're too into your Aries energy, you're only thinking about yourself. And sometimes when you're too into your Libra energy, you're only thinking about the other person. So it's like you start, so it's like we're obviously pop, like if you go into like to the pop culture of astrology, like you're gonna think, like you're gonna hear that Libra energy is more of people pleasing, or like just thinking about the other person, or very diplomatic, which to some extent is good. It's great to have the other person in, like to take the other person into account, but you have to remember there's yourself, there's a self. And if you forget about yourself, there's no relationship, because it is one-sided, and then the relationship needs to be between at least two people, right? So there needs to be both. And the idea is to create that nice balance in between yourself and the other person. So if you're thinking too much of the other person, then you need a little bit of Aries energy. So and then if you're thinking too much of yourself, only yourself, then there's need to be that space and that acknowledging of that there is another person that requires as well attention, respect, and that needs to be valued. And this is very important because that's, well, your values you would see a little more on Taurus as well. But again, Libra is ruled by Venus, and Venus talks a lot about your values, what you value, what you like, what you desire, what feels good, your pleasure, and again, your desire. And so there needs to be that desire to get to know someone, or needs to be that desire to grow, or to go, which would be the Aries energy, going, taking action, um, for the things that call your attention, for the things that you desire, for the things that you want to do, or the things that you want to experience. And it says this cool dance in between what you want and what you get fulfilled, and again and again and again, over and over. It's a cycle. Um it's that, yeah, it's a dance, and that you can only learn through experiencing it, I guess. Now, let me see. I have a few notes here because I want to make sure I don't forget anything that I wanted to say. um, so yeah, it's in this, what I like talking about is, self-discovery. And also, I think I said it in my last episode, but I also wanted to say that here, is that I see astrology as a language, and it's something that reminds you of something else. Like, you don't really need astrology. Like, you don't, as in the same way that you don't really need, obviously it's very inconvenient and it's important, and this doesn't take any of the importance of, science and data and studies. Um, but in that same case, like sometimes you don't, there are things that are very obvious, or maybe, I think I'm trying to think is if that's the word. I don't want to use words loosely, but sometimes it's kind of obvious that things that do good to you. And in the case of astrology, I love astrology. It's a language and it's a way to remind you things, but you don't really need it. It's like you need to take a look at yourself and your relationships, and through those relationships, and through giving yourself and other people the opportunity to get to know each other, and I think you can have experiences that are fulfilling and that add to your well-being, and that creates a snowball effect. And again, it creates this cycle of getting to know yourself better, getting to know other people better. And through through that getting to know yourself and getting to know other people, you start respecting yourself more and respecting other people more. And then, well, then you have like your boundaries and all these things that you can also see. You can also see in astrology. Um, and we can talk about other archetypes. I don't know, we can talk about Saturn, and we can talk about Capricorn, and we can talk, about the boundaries and the space and time and where things happen, and the spaces where things happen. But that would be for another topic. But again, it's that it's as first um, attempt to creating something, and then intentionally making it sustainable, that I guess adds to your well-being. Also, when I was doing this podcast, when I was like trying to see what I wanted to talk about in this podcast, I realized that I I wanted to do this podcast for forever. Like I've been trying to do this for a million years, right? And I I one of my I think it was my first episode. It was like I think it was just called Just Start. That's what I'm gonna think when I want to talk about it, or what I want to call this podcast is, or this episode is just starting. And that's the energy of Mars. Sometimes like you don't have to think or overthink. Like I was too into my mind, and I just needed that action, that fire energy to start that I'm not gonna think about it anymore. I'm just gonna go do it. And that's a great tool when you're analyzing things too much, you're too much into your air energy. Just, like going to action, and that action creates motivation and creates that momentum to do more things. Um, but again, that's how I see it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need more of that fire energy. I just need to start. And now, obviously, I organized this episodes in a different way. I wanted to be more like, okay, so for the introductory episode, and then talk about each of the archetypes, each of the houses, and then how those relate in to our everyday life. And well, today was about relationships and that Aries energy, and that I needed to start already. Also, I want to mention that I recorded this episode from the comfort of my bedroom. And that was also another thing, because I had a different background last time. And like, obviously, I want a beautiful background behind me, but that was preventing me from actually starting, from taking action, because it would take too long in order to create or to record the podcast. So I was like, for now, this is good for now. And I just want to get myself started again, start showing up, being born, letting it be, letting it be born. So that's why I decided that in order to be something sustainable, I needed to start, and I needed to do something that was not that much time consuming. And doing it from my bedroom is very convenient, to be honest. So yeah, that was all I have for you for today. I hope it all made sense. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope also that um I entertained you and that you had a good time listening to me, and that I know that we shared some company, and that this space was of value to you. So I'll see you next time. And if you have any question, just feel free to reach out. Or if you have not any question, if you want to add something to this, or maybe something I didn't see or I didn't talk about, and you want to add something of value to this, it would be great. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share if you find it cool. All right. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.